Hello, everybody. Denver Riggleman here. Denver After Dark, Sunday Night Live. It's great to see everybody. I do love our intro. I know I say it every week, but it is great. I don't think I'm ever going to change it. Even when we get a contract, everybody heard Barry Weiss, who's an incredibly bad reporter, got a $200 million contract. Me and Doug are looking at probably a $500 million contract here in the next year or so. So you guys need to be here as we're getting started. You can see, remember when Denver just had, just a real cult following. What's up, scouts? What's going on? So, I wait for people to come on, but boy, we have a hell of a story night tonight. I really do appreciate everybody coming on live. I know Sunday night at 9 p.m. is weird, but I work a lot, right? I have an AI company. I have 2 distilleries. I do a lot of media, but really it comes down to my travel and my work and a lot. I just been offered, I want to tell you guys something really crazy. I've been offered like 3 or 4 different startup networks me to come on the show and even, offering me equity and to be paid and things like that. And they're great people and I love what they're trying to do. The thing is, I can't really give the time that I want to give to them in an honest way because most of the time, right, I'm not going to be able to actually do everything that they want me to do. And I feel guilty about it. Just like with Amy McGrath and Truth in the Barrel, I told her, I'm like, I'm in. And the reason I don't do it as much anymore is because of work, because my company's exploded. For example, supposed to go back to Ukraine, supposed to go to Canada. Then I have to actually go back to London, back to UAE, to Dubai and Abu Dhabi. So it's crazy. Hey, and I love you too, Robin. So we have all this going on right now. If you have I love yous pop up, I'm going to try to actually answer with I love you back because that's what I do on this show because it's the sultry Denver After Dark at 9 p.m. So I have a story time. So when I was running, actually, it was after I think I won the nomination. So back in 2018, I had won the convention for the Republican nomination by 1 vote. And I know that sounds pretty nuts, but I'd won it by 1 vote. So when I was being vetted, by the way, let me tell you, it's never quite as exciting as when you're in the middle of a Campbell County meeting, Campbell County, Virginia, if anybody knows Virginia, pretty rural, very close to Lynchburg, very close to Liberty. And they're vetting me and they're like, well, what do you think about marijuana? I'm like, well, legalize it. And they're like, well, aren't you a Christian? We'll only vote for Christians. Well, I'm actually a former Mormon and not that religious. It wasn't going over. Like, so I had a person actually on the right, and this is a true story, and I'm going to quote it because everybody needs to hear this as the shocker it was. The person on my right goes, "Hey, what about them gays?" Like, so here I am. I've already said that I'm for legalizing marijuana. I'm a former Mormon, not religious anymore. Had left the Mormon church. Um, and then this guy had read in the Washington Post, I guess a couple years earlier when I was for the Marriage Equality Act. He's like, "How about them gays?" And I'm like, "Well, I think they should be happy like everybody else." I said, "Are you interested? In gay people?" I didn't even know how to answer the question. Are you interested in gay people? Yeah, it's pretty brilliant. So there was a huge meeting. I was in another meeting, and we were talking about the Second Amendment. Now, I'm a Second Amendment supporter, right? I love to hunt, I love to shoot, I love all these types of things, right? However, I'm not insane. So anyhow, so we have this meeting, and we're at a meeting, and there's the 1986 Gun Control Act, right? And the 1986 Act was still pretty liberal, it was pretty widespread, but it did stop anybody from buying fully automatic machine guns after the time, right? That it was enacted in 1986. So now think about this, guys. This law allows just about everything. If you go just check out the 1986 Gun Control Act. So anyway, so I'm sitting there and I have somebody raise their hand in the front and goes, "Well, I'll vote for you." And now there's got to be 100 people in there. He goes, "Well, I'll vote for you if you go in and repeal the 1986 Gun Control Act." Well, okay. There's a lot of things you got to do to get something to a vote. Has to go through committee, right? You have to pull deals. You have to get the language correct. You have to go through ledge affairs. You have to do all these things in order to repeal something or to have a new act on the books. However, what if you don't agree with it like I did? So now everybody starts clapping. They're all clapping like, yeah, we all want fully automatic machine guns. It's true story. Now I'm sitting up there and I have a conundrum, right? As a GOP candidate and deep red Virginia. Do I lie? Yeah, sure. Let's repeal the 1986 Gun Control Act. It's going to be easy. This will be great. Yeah. How popular would I be with the saying, let's do that? But everybody was just for it. So this is what I actually had to do. So I'm sitting up there and I said, hey, I said, do you want a congressman that looks stupid? And they're like, no, no. Okay. I said, if I go up there and try to do this, you do understand Virginia is a unique place. We're not going to get the Gun Control Act in. And whether I supported it or not, I could do much more by helping with rural broadband, getting us connected, and helping us with healthcare and education. I said, if I go up there and try to repeal the 1986 Gun Control Act, I'm going to be in the minority most likely. It's during the blue wave. I'm going to be in the minority most likely. I said, I would look stupid, and I can't actually do something stupid right off the bat in order to make it happen. Yeah, that's how I got out of it, guys. Freaking ridiculous, right? What you have to do. You're like, Denver, wait a minute. You gave like a political answer, but you sort of told him the truth. Yeah. I mean, that was the tough thing, right? When I was doing all this. So, same meeting, I figured I sort of escaped this thing and that I was so smart, just so smart that there couldn't be a question that could stump me after that. No way. Not this guy. So somebody raises their hand and go, hey, how about them red flag laws? You're not for red flag laws. Now, here's the issue. Virginia already had, and the federal government, I don't know if you guys know this, already had red flag laws on the books. I don't know if you guys even know this. They're really not enforced too much. And we can go into this like another one. If you guys want to hear about my knowledge of the Second Amendment, red flag laws, all that stuff, it's sort of comprehensive. I might have, some real strong hillbilly DNA, but I do have an IQ above morons. So anyway, so here we go. I said, well, and I remember, back then I actually knew that this question I thought would come. And I'm like, hey, you know, red flag laws are sort of still already on the books. I said, but I am for initial vetting, especially if there's, some kind of record that somebody has, right? They've already proven themselves to be mentally unstable, things like that. And people in the crowd are like, it doesn't matter if you're crazy, if you never did any violence, it doesn't matter. I didn't even know how to answer. You get to a point that you have a very difficult time with all this. And when you're looking at the people out there who are owning weapons, it's interesting that those who think there should be red flag laws, I'm going to tell you out of the 100 people in there, if it was an IQ test for the Second Amendment, wouldn't have been a whole lot of guns being owned. You know what I'm saying? So, so we have all this happening right now, and this churn of the Second Amendment, and the Second Amendment should be completely unlimited. So what I'm getting to, the baseline here, there should be no limits on the Second Amendment. Anybody can own a gun. That's it. I even had those in our party who really thought that after a certain amount of time, domestic abusers should be able to get guns back at a certain time. And they should be able to keep those guns even as they're being, I would say, adjudicated for it as they're going through court, right? That's pretty interesting. So, I find it really interesting that we have an administration right now who believes that somehow it would be appropriate to identify a specific portion of the population and strip their Second Amendment rights away just because they're of a certain gender or sex. And I'm talking about transgender individuals. I would say WTF in all of this. But my thing is, and I just want everybody to sit and think about this statement I'm about to make to you. Has anybody aware of a transgender crime wave? I'm not. I mean, do we have transgender people riding through the streets, breaking down windows, screaming, with baseball bats and fully automatic machine guns going through town, raising up on their shoulders? throwing their hair back. You know, I don't think so. I don't think so. And I don't think there's going to be a transgender crime wave because I will tell you this. I don't know if we've had an army of drag queens with guns that actually have come out. Oh, goodness. Maybe. I don't know. I don't think we have, right? Now, Doug, that I don't know if that was. I don't think that's actually nonfiction. I think that was fiction from a movie. So I don't want people to think we actually took that picture in the act of something happening. Just want everybody to know that. Actually, I thought it looked pretty cool. And so here's where we're at, right? I guess what I'm telling everybody here is that what you're saying is an administration, you know, um, what's good for me, but not for thee. But it's worse than that. They are lying about transgender crime statistics and murders and mass murders. And if they're telling the truth, if they really want to tell the truth, do you know the population that commits most mass murders? Can anybody think about, if you think about the United States of America and you see somebody coming down the street, right? And let's say you have a white male, a black male, an Asian male, transgender, Latino male, what else? Romanian, no, whatever. Who is most likely, who is a person that you would pick most likely to be a mass murderer? Yeah, it's the white male. So, and so that it gets to a point that it's so ludicrous, but they're actually trying to really push hate into the environment, and they're trying to find a scapegoat for things that they're failing at miserably. But really, what it looks like is it's the same thing they've done to immigrants and everything like this. This is a dehumanizing administration. So, if you go back to what I was talking about, where somebody could have a weapon while they're being accused, right, of domestic battery or assault, I find it interesting, right, that it does depend on who's in government, right, on who is being identified as a threat. This sounds really historically bad. Also, I have a dear friend who is transgender. I love this person. I'm not going to say this person's name unless the person wants to comment on YouTube, right? But this person is from Nelson County, lived here in the mountains, loves to hunt, has weapons, incredible person, never broken a law. I mean, to be honest, somebody who has helped people their entire life through medical services, somebody who cares so much about reaching across the aisle and trying to bring people together. And when this incredible person reached out to me, she says, you know, I'm just a scapegoat for whatever's happening here. I'm just a scapegoat. And I think that's what I want everybody here to understand is that if you're a Second Amendment believer, if you're a Second Amendment enthusiast, or you like to shoot and you love the Second Amendment and you think that's great, it's in right, it's in our Constitution. I love the Second Amendment. That means I support any legal person having a weapon, and that includes transgender individuals. And I think, you know what? If I owned a gun shop, I'd have 20% off all guns for transgenders. That's what I would do. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think everybody should be able to own a weapon. If you're going to apply the Second Amendment, let's apply the Second Amendment as it was written, right? Based how the far right read it, which is everybody gets to have a gun. You know, militia isn't part of it, right? Everybody's part of the militia, right? So let's just do that. So I completely support transgenders having weapons because they're just people like everyone else. Are we going to support, how about black people not having weapons? When did that happen, right? When did that happen? Oh, that's interesting. Huh. It's like the law was used against a specific group of people to scapegoat, to stereotype, or to introduce hate into the environment. Dehumanization of other people is a way to fascism and authoritarianism. That's just really how it works. And if we're not here, if we're not able to wrap our arms around our transgender brothers and sisters, I don't know what kind of people we actually are at this point, to be honest. I just don't. And if we give into this, where they say this is some kind of mental illness, that transgender people are mental illness? Well, here's what I would like to ask. Are there certain religions that maybe identify as mental illness? Certain cults or sects, right? Sex, SECTS, sex. So what is mental illness, right? So now how are we going to identify or categorize mental illness? Heck, based on categorization, maybe I'm mentally ill, right? I don't know. Maybe people like the Dropkick Murphys are mentally ill because it's punk rock. Maybe people think that everybody who likes punk rock is mentally ill. We don't know, right? Listen, unlike everybody's different gods, transgenders actually exist. Woo! Woo! I'm sure that'll be played when I run for president in 2028. So here we go. um, I'm sorry that I get a little bit angry about it. I'm sorry I get a little bit passionate about it, especially when there's people that you love and you respect that are affected based on things that are entirely untrue. So yes, I did go there, Tim. So, so I wanted to start with that rousing story. So I had 3 or 4 topics. Doug always gets mad at me because sometimes I have too many topics. So he's not mad at me. He just says that Denver, they want to really hear what you're saying. So when we talk about mental illness and, when we talk about this transition to mental illness, which we can identify or categorize based on who's in charge, who is mentally ill. Let's transition to Laura Loomer. How about that? So, Laura Loomer. Did you guys know Laura Loomer is the Tulsi Gabbard of the DNI? I did not know that Laura Loomer was going to have so much power that she could influence NGA, the National Geospatial Agency, or any type of intelligence community agency, or a group, or a person, or the military to rescind an invitation to a sitting United States senator who sits on the Senate Intelligence Committee, and that is Virginia Senator Mark Warner, who I know. Now, everybody, if there's somebody I don't want it owning a weapon, it's Laura Loomer. Let's just be honest. So here's what I want to talk about. The reason I transitioned here is because now we have somebody who's a conspiracy theorist, somebody who cannot tell fact from fiction, or if they can, are so cynical or so power hungry and so sociopathic or narcissistic that they're willing to say anything for power. And yet right now we have this administration where Laura Loomer is vetting people. And if you remember, the NSA director, Dernza, Tim Hawk, got fired because of Laura Loomer. Multiple individuals have been fired because of Laura Loomer. And now she's blocking true integrated intelligence meetings that are to the benefit of the United States security and sovereignty. And this stupid idiot is out there dictating who can meet with who. I'm telling you right now, that is unsatisfactory. How about that word, guys? Unsat, military word of the day, right? This is unsat. The thing that I would do, though, is I'm Senator Mark Warner. Here's what I'm saying. Well, I'm going to invite you to my Senate offices and see if that gets blocked. Now we're to a point where he cannot actually conduct his oversight constitutional responsibility. Now I'm going to force the issue. So if I'm Mark Warner and if I was a sitting senator, which you never know, one day, I mean, look at this, the face of a senator. So if I'm a senator one day, what I would do is I would force the issue by inviting him to my offices. And I'd like to see if Mark's going to do that. But I don't know how, when I look at everything that's happening, this thread, right, where people who aren't mentally ill are being actually identified as mentally ill by those who I believe are mentally ill. And then you have those like J.D. Vance who said they don't give a shit, right? If we attack people in extraterritorial waters or in international waters without any type of real due process. And I'm going to tell a real quick story about that because I hate cartel members and terrorist guys. I'm going to tell you, I bombed a lot of them. Okay. A lot. A lot. So the issue that we have here, though, is that we have people that also are giving insane answers to very specific questions. And that's why you saw Rand Paul get angry also, right? You can't say I don't give a shit as a sitting vice president when you're talking about bombing specific entities right? That might or might not have been doing what they said they're going to do, and then saying they don't have the ability to tell what the intelligence is because it's classified after they've been, planning on signal, right? That's being released to, to journalists all the time. Think about that cascading effect of what I'm talking about. When you have the mentally ill or the cynical or the ignorant or the credulous or the stupid or those that are just power hungry making decisions about who's mentally ill or not when RFK Jr. is in the administration. Boom. Let's just throw up the nuke right now because that's what's going on. We have stupid, crazy people calling the sane stupid and crazy, and they're gaslighting. They're gaslighting. It's hard for me not to be enraged that Laura Loomer is part of this administration at all. It's hard for me not to be enraged that somebody that incapable has a direct line to the president's office. We can make jokes. We can talk about what Mar-a-Lago faces. I mean, we can do all kinds of stuff, right? We can go down the line and tell all these jokes. But what I'm telling everybody here is that the danger of stupidity is this. And I think you guys have heard me say this before. Stupidity is terminal. Stupidity is terminal. Who are we right now as a country to think that anything that the government does at this time is based on facts or data or sanity? Who are we to do that? What if we did get an atheist president who said all religious people, people who pray to somebody that can't be proven or can't be seen, are insane and shouldn't own weapons? Be riots. It would be crazy. It would be absolutely berserk, absurd if that were to happen. Just identify a subset of people that somebody else might think are crazy. That would literally be 90% of my family, right? Gone. Can't own weapons. You guys are religious. What does that sound like? Right? Sounds like history, right? Where religious groups were oppressed. And now we have religious groups who have been oppressed trying to oppress. And that's what happens when you have Christian nationalism. So that's what I'm talking about with who we can't have a government. We can't have leaders. We can't have the crazy that are in positions of power dictating what sane or insane is just based on if it doesn't align with their specific principles. And that's where we're at today, guys. And I know I'm just 22 minutes in, but it's at this point, I usually go to a third topic, but it's hard for me not to get over the horrific nature of lying about who's committing crimes to effectuate votes, to try and influence the 2026 midterms by using hate as a turnout tool, based on people who are just trying to live their lives. And then to have somebody else who could be insane dictating the business of our intelligence activities in the United States of America with a vice president who puts out things that are so unhinged that you wonder also if there's a mental issue there also. All these three things, to me, are the same issue. And if you think about the story I said or told about all of those individuals who wanted me to legalize fully automatic machine guns for everyone, what do you think the downstream effect of that is today when you can still get a machine gun with an FFL, federal firearms license? I can go get a fully automatic machine gun. A friend of mine owns about a half dozen of them. Think about if you had no checks or balances, who are the crazy ones? And then you have to wonder downstream, how is this going to affect how any administration does going forward on who they identify out of constitutional bounds based on fiat, who should or who should not own firearms? And what conservative Republican would back a president who calls himself a Republican, who identifies a certain group just because of their gender, just because of how they identify as human beings as being able to own weapons or not, based on the language of the Second Amendment? That was a lot. Doug, was that a lot? That was a lot. And that's the issue that I have tonight. That's why I wonder if there's any questions that you guys want to ask. I hope you do. I do have another topic here, but I almost wanted a mid-break question session. because I think it's pretty incredible, right? What we have going on now, because the next one, the last one I'm about to do, is going to be crazy. So here we go. Doug, if we don't have any questions popping up yet, I'm going to get right into our secret spy, Agent Orange, Donald Trump, right? Um, yeah, MTG, Peggy, thank you. Here, I'm going to read this out loud for everybody. I think, okay, as far as MTG, Peggy says, I think she's exploiting the Epstein victims for her own gain. I don't trust her at all. Def wondering what you think, Denver. Talk about someone who shouldn't own a gun. There you go. Peggy has identified MTG as somebody who's crazy, right? If Peggy was president, things could get crazy out here. Why is MTG doing this? A couple things. It does help her click rate, Peggy. There's things like that. But Marjorie Taylor Greene feels like she's been ostracized from the inner circle. One of her biggest enemies is Laura Loomer. I think MTG actually has sort of been, since she has been cast out of the major inner circle of Trump players, I believe she's aligning in a different way. She doesn't need the money. I mean, I know this is crazy for people, but she doesn't. My guess is she's looking at a different line of attack by aligning with the Epstein victims, but she might really align with them. And the reason she's emboldened is because she feels like she has no play in the Trump administration anymore. This is a Republican scorned issue. And that's usually what happens, right? You get right. And trust me, but she still says some crazy stuff. The thing is, you can never really tell where Marjorie Taylor Greene is based on the fact is, I don't know if she's well, right, mentally, to be honest. I'm not sure. Some of the things she says, if you believe in QAnon or you attack people because they don't believe in QAnon, or you believe, that, Hillary Clinton, right, was actually in the basement of Comet Pizza, you're probably a little bit nuts. So hope that helps. Here we go. Agent Orange, I want to ask everybody a question. Was Mike Johnson lying when he said Trump was an FBI agent, or was he lying when he said he wasn't? This is just incredible, right? So let's say, 007. I have another number in my head, and it ain't 7. But so when we're talking about this right now, here's what I want to tell people about this. Follow the money. Follow the money. So here's the story. January 6th, we were trying to figure out, you guys have heard everybody accusing Democrats of bussing people in to the No Kings protests and things like that. Guess who paid people to be bussed in on January 6th? Would you guys like to know? The Republicans. Yeah, I know. You know why I know? I was on the January 6th committee, and I helped with the green team, which was the follow the money team or the financial team, to track where all the monies came from for all these individuals actually chartering buses, like Turning Point USA and Charlie Kirk. Do you know where most of the money came from that day? Would anybody like to take a guess? Hello? Anybody? Anybody? You know where it came from? The Publix heiress. Public supermarkets. I think they might have started in the South in Florida. She is the one, over $3 million, pumped into specific types of groups to make sure they could pay for people coming in and other types of activities. People were paid and the buses were chartered to bring in these individuals into January 6th. I know. Ain't that crazy? You guys can go look it up. It's public record. Everything I said can be validated on data and facts. Please go check it out today and your nearest media source. So when you're talking about Epstein or you're talking about Trump, what you're talking about is an FBI informant. What's interesting, you can track all this back to money flows of between Epstein and Trump real estate deals, but also Epstein's banking deals, right, with Deutsche Bank, things like that. There's some great things you can go see that's specifically facts based on where money flows were going into Epstein's specific type of activities, right? A lot of that being during the 2007, 2008 stock market crash, right, with CDOs, collateralized debt obligations. So when you're looking at all this, about being an FBI agent, he was an informant. Epstein did talk to the FBI. And my guess is, right, that it could be that Trump was caught up in some of this. And I think this was all a big distraction. But what I want to ask everybody here, when you're talking about the definition of mental instability, why is Mike Johnson making up stories on the fly in chambers about Trump being a secret super duper man, right? really the James Bond of going after pedophiles. And you're like, Denver, why would that happen? Denver must have an answer when he does this. Yeah, because it's a continuation of the QAnon conspiracy theories where Donald Trump was the one who stopped all the pedophile circles. That easy. That's it. I know they're still trying to protect him. I know everything like that, but this goes back to the QAnon conspiracy theory, and that's what's happening with that. So we have all this happening, all this churn. And when you talk about crazy, think about what Trump's done with the Epstein files, saying he was going to release them, and he didn't release them. Now they're all the redactions. Now there was an FBI informant, just all the churn. As you know, Steve Bannon flooding the zone with shit, and that's all that they're trying to do. So again, I know we started off with Second Amendment, but I think you guys see the thread tonight on Denver After Dark, and I thought that's why this would be bonkers. Is what is how do you identify mental illness? What is it? What does that look like? Is it just because you don't agree with somebody, or it's because somebody continually lies psychopathically based on data or facts that can't be tracked back to a source, that are completely made up? And what if this person tries to, I don't know, entice others to do coup stuff? Or, what if this person continually lies about his sexual relationships, or is adjudicated for sexual abuse, or is a felon? Now are we talking about, are all the people voting for this type of individual, are they not seeing the light? Do they have some kind of mental issue where they can't determine fact from fiction? Or are we the crazy ones? So I'll end with this before questions. There's a great book. Don't go see the movies, but you can. Great book by Richard Matheson called I Am Legend. If anybody's read the book, at the end of the book, it doesn't end like anything else that's been out there sort of in movies, whether they were Charlton Heston or Will Smith. At the end, he's sitting in a cell and he's really mulling the fact that he is legend because he's the last of his kind, which is what we would call a normal human being. The whole world had been subsumed, taken over by these other types of creatures of the night. Now he's in jail and he's the odd one out. And the thing that scares me is that sanity will become to be defined with insanity. That reality, the reality that we live in, that's real, that's tangible, that's truth-based, that can go to a source of facts or data, will no longer be real, because there's no way any of us can argue against a belief system that doesn't have any ability to be proven. It's only feelings or voices or whatever. And when I'm watching what's happening these first 8 months, when I said stupidity is terminal, what happens is when you start, or when you keep making these bad decisions, you keep identifying people as enemies, when does it actually fall apart? And that's the issue that we have. And that's why I wanted to talk to you all tonight. I'm incredibly bothered um, about what's going on. Whether we're talking about a specific type of people being targeted and lied about in order to take away basic constitutional rights, all the way to an individual who we can prove is a conspiracy theorist and has fantastical thoughts and belief systems and hate, real hate for others, unlike her, is making decisions for the United States intelligence community. A vice president who seems to think the rule of law is something you only follow if it's convenient. And then when you go down to a president who does not want to uncover the very files he said he wanted to uncover from a pedophile, and with all the things that he does, and we can go, everybody knows that history of everything Donald Trump has done. My biggest fear is that we collapse in on ourselves based on a government based on fantasy and delusions. And if you have a delusional government with aberrant behavior, how do we react with people who just want to, I don't want to say just get along, but people who just want to use facts and data for decision making and policy, and automatically doesn't have hate in our heart? And how do we continually just show grace to the far right? When I was part of the right, how do I show grace to the people that I've known that are still protecting this thought, this ideal that can't be based on anything concrete or real? So there you go. That's Denver Riggleman tonight. I don't know if there's any questions for Denver on Denver After Dark. I just referred to myself in third person. The question is, what does that mean? What is happening to me? what is happening. So, Doug, I don't know. Is there anybody out there who have any questions? Please put them up on the line. We got a lot of people up right now. A lot of comments, my lord. Um, but yeah, bring them in, and you can ask me anything. It just doesn't have to be about the topics tonight. Is there anything that bothered you today? Is there anything that you want to ask me about my hair care products or moisturizers? Is there anything about my wardrobe where I like to shop? The kind of razors that I like to use? Um, I can tell you, I mean, I can tell you a lot of things. If you're looking for anything, just let me know. Doug, and you guys know I'm blunt and I'm transparent. Doug said the comments are running slow tonight as far as questions, but there's a bunch of comments. So you don't have to ask me anything. You can just sit there and listen and relax. But if you don't have a lot to ask me, you know I'm not going to take a lot of your time. So I want you guys to have a great night. I want you to think about all this craziness that I just said, which is where we talked about crazy, but also treat people nicely. Treat people great. Oh, there's a bit of a delay. Okay, so we're having a delay on the line coming into our StreamYard, which is going out to everything tonight. So I apologize for that. It wasn't that that the comments were not there. How do we get ready for what's coming? Thomas, goodness, such a great question. You know, when they went after Bolton, Thomas, and when I heard they're going to investigate the J6 committee like me, I had to wonder the same thing. How am I getting ready? And what I'm doing is, for me personally, I have to make sure all my affairs are in order, right? My kids are aware of what's going on. Bank accounts are in order, that my life's in order. Now, there is a lot of people who aren't quite in my position, right, where I have to worry about, these type of things because I have multiple companies, AI companies, I own distilleries. I have a lot going on in my life, and that's why it's Sunday night at 9 because of all this. But how do you get ready? I literally don't know. Because if it's me getting ready, I can only speak for me. But if it's you, right, we got to get ready for the 2026 midterms first, which means you have to be active. You have to be politically active. As far as what you're going to do with your life and how to get ready, that is up to you. If there are people that are threatening you, you have to make decisions about personal protection, right? How are you going to do that? About alarm systems, right? If that's what you're worried about. If you're worried about the political landscape and where we're going and how people are being demonized, is the type of groups that you want to be involved with. What I will tell you, everybody, is that you can be identified and targeted, but I hope nobody becomes quiet. I hope you continue to do the things you need to do to protect those around you that are being unfairly identified and targeted. Um, I'm not panicked about it. And that's the thing. I have my own issues, right? Based on, being identified and being looked at, maybe to be arrested at some point or to be subpoenaed. Maybe not arrested, to be subpoenaed and things like that. But I do want to let everybody know, I think the best way to be ready is to be forearmed with knowledge and to make sure that you don't fall into some of the same patterns as others and you have the ability to fight back based on what's up here and what's in here. And I think heart and head is where you need to be. And then put your families first and don't let yourself get baited into situations, right, where it's uncomfortable or at some point you might be in danger based on what people are, if you have people in your neighborhoods, you have people marching and things like that. Just be smart. We said what we said in the military is just don't be stupid. I hope that helped. Probably not a whole lot, but I hope it did. Please go to the socials, guys. If you want to see more of this, please tell your friends. I'm not going to go out there and be ridiculous and have hyperbolic crap. So please tell your friends. Tell them to lock in, come in, talk to me, comment. Let's get a community of good people together. Denver After Dark's on Substack, right? You can find me. It's very easy. YouTube channel. You guys know you're on here. But specifically, I do think, and me and Doug have to talk about starting a next channel on the Blue Sky channel so you guys can see what Denver After Dark's thinking. I just have to have the time to do it because it is just me and Doug and all the research that we do together. So I hope you guys have a great night. Go to socials, spread the word that the best host on Sunday night, 9 p.m. live, named Denver, is Denver Riggleman and Denver After Dark. You guys have a great night. I'll catch you on the flip. See you this week a couple times, and then next week, maybe we'll have something special for you guys. Maybe like a prize. Maybe get a t-shirt or something, because we're big spenders on this show. You guys have a great night and take care and catch you on the flip. See you. Denver After Dark is out.